Good evening and welcome to our July 1st, 2014 Ogden City Redevelopment Agency meeting. Let the roll call reflect that all board members are present with the exceptions of Vice Chair Gochner, who is asked to be excused. First item is approval of minutes of our joint study session of May 13th, 2014. Board Member Stevens.
Yes, I've reviewed those and they are correct, Chair, and I make a motion that we approve the joint study session of May 13th, 2014.
I'll second it.
Okay, we have a motion by Board Member Stevens, second by Board Member Wicks for approval of the minutes. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Okay, the next part of our agenda is for common consent, budget amendment, Trackline Economic Development Area.
Chair Heyer, I would make a motion that we set the public hearing for July 29th, 2014 for the Trackline Economic Development Area budget item.
Second.
Okay, got a motion by Board Member Wicks, seconded by Board Member White. To set the public hearing for July 29th on the resolution 2014-10. This is a voice vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Are there any opposed? Next item is reports from administration. Property acquisition at 2423 Kiesel.
Mr. Cooper.
Mr. Cooper will present to us.
Chair Heyer, members of the board, thank you for your time tonight. Before you is Resolution 2014-11, which authorizes the executive director to execute a real estate purchase contract with H&P Investments for the purchase of 3 parcels between Grant and Kiesel and 24th Street and 25th Street for $1.1 million. So tonight I'd like to discuss a little bit of why we're focused on that area of the downtown, what the project entails, and then I'll discuss a little bit about the contract itself. Maybe a little. That's perfect, thanks. So this is just a concept rendering of the project that we're targeting for this area. Here's Grant Avenue here, Kiesel Avenue here, 24th Street, 25th Street down here further. Right now, there's a surface parking lot here, and there was, as of recently, a building here, and then there's also a building that extends across this way. This is a little better. Let's go down. Is that the same orientation? Yeah. So again, here is the building that remains, the building that was just torn down here, and the surface parking lot here. All of these parcels and buildings are owned by Homer Katrubis and his brother Fadia, both individually and as a corporation, H&P Investments. We approached them almost a year ago to discuss the acquisition of that piece in order to be able to conceive of this project here. Parking for this overall block development is crucial, and the land that we're discussing this evening is the area in which the parking lot would be constructed. So our proposed project that we're in the process of developing further as we go along beyond the discussion of tonight's property acquisition consists of a parking structure here. It would consist of a commercial mixed-use building here. It would also entail the development of the Kiesel building, which is currently mostly vacant. It would be developed into residential loft units. There's an open space plaza area that's being considered as well, in addition to some surface parking. So all of these components together really work to strengthen the block, bring business to that block. Right now we have a vacant lot here. We have a partially occupied building here, as I mentioned, an empty building here. There's this building that remains is empty, partially occupied on both sides here. So there's a lot of lost opportunity in that block, in addition to some of the most historically significant buildings in the city that remain vacant. So our objective is to generate some interest from the private market is see those historic buildings renovated and occupied, get some new construction into the area. And all that's really centered around providing new parking for not only that section of the downtown, but really going west to the hotel, to the 25th Street businesses and patrons, and then also to the conference center, which has been a discussion over the last 3 or 4 years in terms of additional capacity and further promoting the conference center. So the parking structure is important for that as well. So that's in general the project, and this will come to you in various points in time in various capacities as a project. Tonight we're discussing just the acquisition of those 3 parcels, which look like that. So here's the Kiesel building for reference, Kiesel Avenue. So those 3 parcels here are what we just are discussing tonight. And the reason why we start there is because without property, there is no project, and so we seek to control that property at the very front end of the project conception, and then we go forward from there. So as I mentioned, there's 3 parcels owned by the same group of folks. The purchase price is $1.1 million. It's a little under an acre, so 0.96 acres. The terms of the contract is there is an $85,000 earnest money payment due by September 1st, and that would leave about $1,015,000 left at closing. Closing is set for well in the future, May 1st of 2015, to allow us to not only develop and design the project, but also to generate interest from our stakeholders. This is a complicated project that's going to need the involvement of the redevelopment agency, the county, private investment, and we're looking also at a special assessment area to help structure the financing for the parking structure. So as I mentioned that, Weber County has become a integral part in our discussions. We presented this contract to them and the project and informed them of how we were looking to finance the project. They were willing to entertain it due to the benefit that it provides to the conference center. And so they've given us a verbal commitment to fund the $85,000 earnest money payment that's due in September. And then as that would actually put us under contract with the seller, that would give us enough time to not only conduct feasibility around the project elements themselves, but also the county would conduct an additional study to help them understand what parking would do for the conference center. The $85,000 is fully refundable, so in the event that we get to closing and we've determined that the project isn't feasible or that the funding isn't available or any number of reasons, the $85,000 would be refunded to the county and the contract would be void and null. So there's very little risk, and the sellers have been willing to allow us to go through that feasibility phase to be able to address some of the concerns of the project. So tonight is Resolution 2014-11, and that would just allow us to partner with the county, enter into the contract with their money being paid on our behalf, and then we would bring the project forward after that in various stages and in various times. Is there any questions around that?
Any questions for Mr. Cooper?
So during that time period, do we maintain those buildings and the outside of those buildings, or who?
No. So there are some buildings remaining on the property. One has been torn down, but the ownership and maintenance and management of those buildings would remain with the seller.
Is one of those buildings a historical building then on the site?
Depends on who you ask, but yeah, I believe that part of this building here, as it currently sits, is historical, based on its age and significance.
So in developing, you would take that in consideration then?
Right. If you look at this drawing here, it's actually 2 buildings. This is the front of it that has the historical significance. This is an addition that has a barrel roof, and as part of the proposed plan, we would actually tear down the back of it and potentially keep the front of it renovate it and get it to the point of occupancy as part of the project.
Any other questions for Mr. Cooper? Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
What's your pleasure?
I'll make a motion that we adopt proposed resolution 2014-11 for the property acquisition at 2423 Kiesel.
I second it.
A motion by Board Member Garner, seconded by Board Member Stevens, to adopt Resolution 2014-11. This is a roll call vote.
Board Member Blair?
Aye.
Board Member Garner?
Aye.
Board Member Stevens?
Aye.
Board Member Wicks?
Aye.
Board Member White?
Aye.
Chair Heyer?
Aye, that passes. Next item is item B, Land Transfer and Development Agreement at 2250 Kiesel. This, I assume, will... Mr. Cooper again.
Thank you. So we have another great project to talk about. This is located at the junction. Lot 8 is the lot that is adjacent to the Deseret Bookstore to the east. Right now, the Hilton Garden Inn occupies a portion of it, as well as the parking structure. On the west side of that parking structure, the east side, the Tokyo Station is under construction. And so Lot 8E is the lot remaining on that larger block. And it's a small lot. It's 6,156 square feet, and there's a 16-foot easement that actually goes across the property here. So that comes straight through. So really, there's not 6,100 square feet to build on. We've been interested ever since we subdivided this property. We've been interested in finding a user that would work well there, considering the constraints of the property. In our analysis, we've realized that in addition to the over 300 residential units that are within our central business district, we have approved and planned over 400 additional units over the next 24 months, the time it would take for them to be constructed. So we'll have well over 700 residential dwelling units within walking distance of this site. So we were very interested in getting something that would support those new downtown residents. In doing so, we went through a couple of different folks that were interested. Marty Berlin is a local Ogden resident. I believe now he lives in South Ogden. But he's been in the meat business for 30 years, and he's opened many delis and meat shops through his career as a representative of a meat company. So he's interested in putting that part of his life to rest and opening a new business in the form of Berlin's Fine Meats and Deli. So we've been working with him for quite a while. He likes this location due to its proximity to the temple and its proximity to the rest of the junction amenities. It does provide some constraints. So in our negotiations and what is in the land transfer and development agreement that's in your packet tonight is a couple of incentives that have been negotiated on behalf of the RDA. One is that the property would be conveyed at no charge to Mr. Berlin as an incentive for development. The rationale behind that is because of the constraints of the easement and also the size, as well as what the conditions of the property are in terms of the soil. In addition to that, and related to the soil, there's an additional $50,000 stipulated in the land transfer and development agreement that would come to Mr. Berlin as an incentive or as a reimbursement to deal with the conditions of the soil. Unfortunately, when the mall was demolished, there was an oversight and there was a portion of that old building left in the ground. And unfortunately, he has to deal with that during construction of the new building, and that creates a massive overage in what traditional costs would be in terms of footing and foundation. So a $50,000 incentive was negotiated to help offset some of that additional expense. It nowhere near comes close to what he'll be spending for micro piles and those types of things, but it was acceptable to him, and we felt it was acceptable in terms of the payback that the project would bring to us. So those are the two incentives that are indicated in the development agreement. In return for those incentives, Mr. Berlin would get underway with construction in August. That's the plan. He's already received Planning Commission approval, which is part of your packet tonight. And his financing is basically conditioned upon the action taken tonight on the incentives within the agreement. With those things in place, he would close on financing. We'd go through a few other additional steps, and he would like to be closed on the property and under construction sometime in the middle of August, and then occupied first part of next year. So it's with pleasure that I recommend the approval of Resolution 2014-12. I believe that this will be a great addition to creating a walkable, sustainable community. Not only does he offer deli products and meat products, but there will be a component, a rather large component on a percentage basis of staple good items, so milk and bread and fresh fruit and eggs and those type of things that folks that are living in this area are going to require in terms of living downtown. Any questions?
Any questions for Mr. Cooper?
It's a one-story structure. It looks like a two-story, but it is it a one-story?
I did bring pictures now that we're done. It's a one-story structure technically. There is an inside mezzanine, which is the discrepancy in the two different square footages. The footprint is around 2,500 square feet. The actual total usable square footage is around 3,600 square feet. So it's a single-story structure on one side of it, and the prominent corner actually reads as a two-story. So it'll have an elevated prominent corner. These pictures make it look enormous, but I think the architect meant it to be that way. But this is a very small building on a very small site. But it will be an attractive building. It's accomplished a couple of things in that it blocks the parking structure to the east there, so you're no longer able to see that big blank concrete wall. And it will incorporate nicely into the site, so we'll still be able to maintain a large public right-of-way. His service entrance, which is here, is blocked nicely, so you won't see trash cans or equipment. He'll have plenty of outdoor seating, so there'll be a little patio area here. There'll be some additional seating across the front of the building here, in addition to his mezzanine, which is inside of the building. So it'll be a great venue for folks that like to have fresh, healthy food, maybe not a lot of time during their lunch break. They'll be able to come to the location, grab something quick and fresh, and eat out in the nice fresh air. So it's going to be a wonderful addition to that otherwise blank corner.
This is the last empty lot in the junction, isn't it?
There is one more to the west of Treehouse Museum, which the church owns.
Oh, that's true. Yep.
And hopefully we'll be talking about that soon.
Very wonderful. Thank you. All right. Discussion?
Seems there's no further discussion. I move that we adopt Resolution 2014-12 with the additional condition that the developer comply with the recommendations made by the Planning Commission.
Second.
I have a motion by Board Member Garner, seconded by Board Member Blair, to adopt this ordinance with the Planning Commission recommendations. This is a roll call vote.
Board Member Garner?
Aye.
Board Member Stevens?
Aye.
Board Member White?
Aye.
Board Member Wicks?
Aye.
Board Member Blair?
Aye.
Chair Heyer?
Aye, and that passes. We're now
Mr. Chair, I like the idea that we have developed a market or even this small market downtown, plus it maximizes the use of our property that's in the junction there to the best use.
Yeah, I think that's going to be a hot store for grocery items and things. That's going to be a hopping place. It's going to be great. Well, on our agenda next is public comments. This is an opportunity to address the board regarding your concerns or ideas. Please state your name and address clearly for the record and limit your comments to 3 minutes. Seeing no movement. RDA Executive Director, Mr. Johnson?
Nothing tonight, thank you.
Board members? Okay. We'll look for a motion to adjourn.
I'll make that motion to adjourn.
Second.
Have a motion by Board Member Garner, seconded by Board Member White to adjourn. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? As a reminder, there will be a City Council work session that will immediately follow, and the items to be discussed are on the agenda.